Thanks for joining me for episode 7 of the Field Quiver Outdoors podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to follow, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll know whenever new content drops. If you enjoy the show and want to know how you can support us, the three easiest ways are to give us a good rating and review, let some friends know about the show, and possibly even the easiest and quickest way, and the one that I would appreciate the most, would be just say a quick little prayer of support for both the show and myself. But if you're interested in supporting the show financially, you can do that too by buying some Field Quiver Outdoors swag or making a donation at fieldquiveroutdoors.com. Now, before we move into my conversation with the Bass Chaplain, Chris Wells, there are a few things I want to mention that have come across my radar since the last episode released that might be of interest to you. Now, this is something that I'll probably start doing regularly at the beginning of the episodes. And keep in mind, I'm in South Carolina, primarily looking for events and activities that I can take my kids to. So, most of what I mention will most likely be pertinent to South Carolina or one of our neighboring states. But there will be news and events that I find out about that are either online or in other locales. So if you know of something in your area that you think might be of interest to me or to the listeners, shoot me an email at jody@fieldquiveroutdoors.com and let me know. And who knows, it might even be something that gets mentioned in a future episode. Now, starting with something that kicked off yesterday that was on my radar, it began yesterday, which was Thanksgiving, and it runs through January 1st, 2024, which is put on by the South Carolina State Park System, and it's called the Dashing Through the Parks Scavenger Hunt. Now, this is something that I'm going to work on doing with my family, and it is an event that I'll put a link in the show notes section for you to read more about and get more details on to see if it's something you may be interested in if you're in South Carolina. But in a nutshell, what it is you download an app called Goose Chase, find the Dashing Through the Park Scavenger Hunt experience, sign up for it as a participant, and start completing the missions that are listed. Now, initially, there were 23 missions when this event went live. Now, since it went live, they actually added 2 events for yesterday for Thanksgiving that had to be completed on Thanksgiving. But there are several events that are date and location specific, but there are a lot that you can do at any time over the period of the event, which is through January 1st. And some of them you can even do at home. You don't even have to go to a South Carolina state park. But just as an example, my family already has 14 points, and we would probably have, let's see, I did the math on it earlier, but it would be over 30 points, I think close to 35 points, if we did all of the missions that could be done without even leaving the house. So they have 2 levels that they have already announced that, or you can receive awards at or potentially receive prizes for. At the 50-point level, you'll receive a prize pack that includes the event themed notebook, beanie, and koozie. And at the 80-point threshold, anyone who accumulates 80 points will be put into a drawing, which, according to the website, will have over, I believe it was $3,500 worth of state park gift cards. I may be wrong on that number. Don't quote me on that number, but it is a significant amount of gift cards to the South Carolina state parks. So we'll probably be close to the 50 after our next park visit. So again, that's just doing things over 2 days. And while it already has a lot of missions, I fully expect them to add more because, I mean, they added 2 missions the day that the event went live. So it's quite possible that they'll add more events over the coming weeks while the event goes on until January 1st. And since we're slightly on the topic of Christmas, let's go ahead and talk about something that MEPS Lures released earlier this week. They have released their 2023 Christmas lure, which is pretty cool. It looks to me, the design looks like it's the elf on the shelf fishing in a glass fish bowl trying to catch goldfish, which is kind of cool. Now, they have three options of this lure. They have two with hooks. One has a plain hook, one is a dressed hook, and they also have a hookless ornament option. Now, a few days after they released this year's ornament, they also came out with a limited edition set of the 6 previous lures that they've come out since they started doing the Christmas lures in 2017. So this set also has options, only 2 options for it though. You can get the Christmas ornament option, which does not have hooks, or you can get one that does have hooks and all of the hooks are dressed. Now, if you're curious about these because you want to buy them and you'll actually fish with them, they are their size 3, which for those not familiar with MEP sizing, they are a quarter ounce lures. Now, as far as pricing goes, uh, the single lure for this year is $7.35 if you go with either the ornament option or the dressed hook option. The plain hook option is $5.25. Now, as far as the sets go, they are listed at $46.45 on the MEPS website per set. And again, that's for the 6 lures that they came out with from 2017 to 2022. And it's you pick your style. All of the lures in the set that you choose will be the same. It'll either be with the dressed hooks or the ornaments, which are hookless. Now, if you pay attention and you want a full, complete, truly complete set, then you'll have to buy the set of 6 and this year's, because this year's is not included in the set. The set only has the lures from 2017 to 2022. Now, speaking of ornaments, here's an idea for your decorations for an activity you can do with your kids. Whenever you go to state parks, national parks, a lot of these outdoor tourist sites have these, which these are the hiking stick medallions. This one just happens to be one that I purchased last year when I went to Kiwi Toxaway State Park here in South Carolina. Originally, I had planned to use these to flatten them out, use them on the wall of my shop as essentially a wallpaper. But uh, I decided a few days ago that what I'm actually going to do with them is cut small sections of wood from scrap pieces that I find in the woods around the house, most likely cedar, since there's an abundance of that where I live, and cut small sections of the cedar, attach these medallions to them, and make ornaments out of them. That way, what I can do is once Christmas is over with and we put up the trees and put the decorations up, I can still take these ornaments and put them on a shelf in the shop and just still display them year round. And then at Christmas time, once we have enough, we'll probably have a tree dedicated to just these ornaments. So that might be something for you to think about if you're looking for a unique way to commemorate your visits to these outdoor tour sites that you can still show year round, but you can put even more emphasis on them at the holidays at Christmas by having a dedicated tree just to these. And then when your family gets together, when your kids are older, they can look at these and the memories come back of the visits to these different sites. Now, the last thing that's on my radar that I'm going to mention this week is that over the last few days, the Bassmaster Elite series, as well as the Major League Fishing Bass Pro Tour, have officially announced the anglers that will comprise their respective rosters for 2024. And you may have noticed that most of the things on my radar for this episode are fishing related, which is, it wasn't intentional, but it is appropriate since my guest for this episode is none other than the Bass Chaplain, Chris Wells. Now, Chris is a native of Somerton, South Carolina, which is near the Santee Cooper Lakes, and he's a graduate of Francis Marion University. He attended Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary before serving as a youth minister for 15 years. He established Wellspoken Ministries and moved into full-time evangelism in 2004. He's an avid angler with a self-diagnosed sickness for professional bass fishing. And Chris was asked to serve as the chaplain for the Bassmaster Elite Tours angler, which he has faithfully done since 2009. Chris has a passion for sharing the gospel with the lost, and I've had the privilege of hearing him speak twice. Once where the main audience was a group of boys, and then again when his message was aimed at men. But both were spectacular, powerful events where tales were told and the gospel was given. If you've never had the opportunity to hear Chris speak, then I would encourage you to follow him on Instagram, which I'll have his username in the show notes of the section, as well as a link to his website. But on Instagram, Chris will oftentimes put any upcoming speaking engagements he has, which are open to the public. If it's close to you, then definitely I would say if you can, go and hear him. If not, but you're looking for a speaker at an event that you're putting on, then you can reach out to him and see about having him come and speak at your event. But now, I present to you my conversation with Mr. Chris Wells, the Bass Chaplain. You are the Bass Chaplain. Tell me what exactly that means.
Well, that's a great question. I grew up loving the sport of bass fishing. All my heroes were bass pros. I collected big league Bass Pro cards. I've got about every Bassmaster episode from 1985 to the present on tape. It was kind of a sickness with me. In 2008, the Bassmasters Classic, which is like the Super Bowl of bass fishing, came to South Carolina for the first time. And when they announced it, I dove over my couch, called up ESPN, and offered to pay them if they would let me ride in the boat and watch somebody fish. Well, I got paired with the guy who won the tournament. His name's Alton Jones, and Alton said, "Man, we're thinking about getting a chaplain. So we're looking at a lot of speakers. Your name keeps coming up. Would you be interested in being the chaplain?" And I tried to look very spiritual. I bowed my head and looked like I was going to pray. And I said, "Let me pray about that for 2 seconds. Yes, I'd love to be the chaplain for the Bassmaster Tour." And so I started with those guys in 2008. And basically what I do is I teach a Bible study for the guys and their families before the tournament starts. And then I'm just kind of there as a pastor would be. And they have about every problem that a church would have. People get sick, family members, die and get illnesses, and their emergencies, and all manner that a pastor would do. And I'm just there kind of as a guy to be there that loves the Lord and cares about them and tries to give them hope in life. So that's kind of how it went.
That's awesome. Okay, and that was what year was that? What year did you
that was 2000
become the chaplain for this group?
2009 is when I really started my duties. 2008 is when they asked me to do it, and they put me in front of a panel of a bunch of pros, and there was like Mark Davis and Edwin Evers and Randy Howell and all these guys in that room, and I was just scared to death. But it was it turned out real well, and I have good relationships with all those guys, and I've really enjoyed being a part of the Bassmaster Elite Series. I don't know how much longer I'm going to do it or be able to do it, but I've really enjoyed my time with them. I guess it's been about 13, 14 years now, so it's been a while. So.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. And just to elaborate a little bit on what you said, as far as you basically serve as the minister for these guys on the weekends that they're these tournaments. Most of these guys have their home churches where they are plugged in locally, but
right.
What you do is basically you help create a local church for these guys at the tournaments. Is that essentially Would that be a good way of
Yeah, that's exactly
explaining it?
right. And we're all a part of the body of believers, and I have every type of denomination. So we're non-denominational. I have Baptists and Methodists and Catholics and Church of Christ and Pentecostals and every manner of theology that you can imagine. But when we get there, it gives them a way to try to plug in and get spiritually fed, even when they're at work. And so it's been a challenge, to be able to meet all those needs. We kind of stay away from any kind of controversial, theology subjects, and we don't back down with the gospel, but
Right.
we try to accommodate everyone on the tour, and we're not pushing a denomination or way. We're pushing that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. That's what we're doing. So.
Now, one of the other things that I've heard you mention or heard brought up on your podcast is the Meet the Pros night that are held usually at different churches, I think. Are you involved directly with that in any way?
Yeah, with Meet the Pros, yeah. Now that started Glenn Chapelier, who used to be the chaplain for the FLW tour, started the Meet the Pros night, and it is a great way. And we've adopted it over in the Bassmaster Elite series. We call it Meet the Elites, and we this year we're hoping to have one at every single tournament. Before it's kind of been sporadic. We've done 2 or 3 a year. But this year, I've had some anglers come to me and say, look, we love this. We want to do it. And what they do, they come in and we'll have 2 or 3 pros talk about the plan of salvation or talk about a testimony in their life. And then we'll have a question and answer time. And then, they'll do little fishing seminars and things like that. And it's a great way for a church to attract people that would normally, never darken the doors of a church. And so that's been a pretty awesome program that we
Okay.
do. Yeah.
As far as prior to you becoming the chaplain for the Elite Series, you had already established Wellspoken Ministries. Is that correct?
I did. I started Wellspoken Ministries in 2004. I was a youth pastor for about 15 years, and I was on a church staff, and I was getting asked to speak a lot of places, and I was gone all the time, and I would use all of my vacation days, all of my revival days. And one time I came home, and my wife said, listen, you need to decide whether you're a youth pastor or whether you're a speaker. So I started praying about it. Prayed with a couple of different people. Adrian DePray was one of those people, and a lot of guys are on my board. I started praying with them, and we decided to step out in faith and start a full-time speaking ministry. And it was a step. It was tough. I was at a big church as youth pastor, and we left that comfort of that to step out and start this ministry, and God blessed it. It wasn't easy, but we made it. And so we've been doing it for however many years now. So.
Okay. All right. And Wellspoken Ministries is the organization that you actually work through in terms of your evangelism, your speaking engagements, and also uh, effectively that's the financial way that you're able to go around and serve as the chaplain to the Bassmaster Elites.
Okay, I heard three words in that. I heard Wellspoken Ministries, financial, and elites. That's all I heard. So,
Okay.
um,
All right.
yeah, you keep freezing on
Um,
me. So,
I got you. Okay.
all right.
As far as the uh, with Wellspoken Ministries is the actual entity that I guess it's the organization that you work through that funds you
Yes.
going around with the
Yeah.
Bassmaster Elites. Is that correct?
That's right. We're a 501c3 ministry, and I started that just when I first started. Didn't know what to do. Didn't know how to do it. And so talked with a couple of people that had stepped out on faith and done ministries before, and they suggested I start out a 501c3. That took about a year in that process of going through an attorney and getting all that filed and everything. And so we set up as a 501c3 nonprofit, and I'm basically paid by Wellspoken Ministries, and we're supported by gifts and what I bring in and speaking engagements. And then, of course, we do our boat giveaway, and that's coming up in December. And this will be the 6th bass boat I've given away, and that has really helped us tremendously to be able to do what we feel like we're called to do. In the early days, it was tough. It was tough financially, and the boat giveaway has helped us to be able to pretty much do whatever we feel like we need to do. So it's been a blessing.
And I was actually going to bring that up in a little bit, but we'll go ahead and talk about it now since you brought it up. The boat giveaway, that's coming up in about a month, and just tell the audience what exactly is the boat giveaway.
Well, what happened was we were looking for different ways to do fundraisers, and really, when you talk about ministries, either you're supported by a church or you're supported by your speaking engagements, and it's a tough way for somebody who has a ministry to make a living. And so somebody suggested to us, I think it was Randy Howell, who does a boat giveaway for an orphanage called the King's Home. And we started praying about it, and I was kind of iffy, and I prayed about it for 5 years before I ever decided to do it. And I got asked to go fishing down in North Carolina with a guy. He was a wealthy individual. He took me out on a big boat, and he said, "What's your holdup about doing the boat giveaway?" And I said, "Well, if we don't sell enough tickets, I'm stuck with paying for a boat." And he said, "I tell you what I'll do. If you don't sell enough tickets, I'll buy all the tickets for the boat." And he never had to buy a single ticket. And it just took off from there. Every year we've pretty much topped the year before. And it enabled us to go from just really, like, one day I would go with Bassmaster and I'd sleep in my truck. The next day I would go and sleep in a motel. And it was kind of like that. And I never could stay the entire time because we just didn't have the funding to be able to do that. It's just an expensive proposition to do ministry, just like any ministry is, whether you go to Africa, whether you doing missions or whatever you do, it has to be funded somehow. And the boat giveaway is pretty much, financially provided me the opportunity. If a church says, "Chris, we want you to come in and preach, but we can't pay you anything," I can still go. And it frees me up to share the gospel, wherever and whenever somebody wants me to come. And so it's been a real blessing for us.
That's amazing to hear that worked out that well, where he didn't have to buy all the tickets. The Lord provided it in that way. As far as your speaking engagements go, what is the most common type of engagement that you're asked to come and speak for?
Yeah. Well, when I was in college, I got on with the Southern Baptist Convention's somersault team. And we would do 5 weeks of camp and 5 weeks of revival services. So I preached 100 revivals before I ever graduated from college. And so when you're a speaker, typically what happens is you kind of get pigeonholed into a certain group. There's some guys that are considered youth speakers, some guys that are considered, revival speakers. I'm kind of an all of the above, but primarily I talk to men's ministry groups. And the reason I do that is because men are important in the church today. It's not to say that women aren't important. As a matter of fact, women have carried our churches for the last 60 years. And my challenge to men is that we need to step up to the plate, and we need to be the leaders in the homes, and we need to be the leaders in the church, and therefore being the leaders in the world. And so most of my events are men's ministry events. I do a lot of wild game banquets, sportsmen's banquets. I still do a good number of revival services. I love to fill in on Sunday mornings. But primarily I'm a men's ministry speaker. And that's the target audience. I feel like if you reach the man, you're going to reach the entire family.
For folks that may be interested in reaching out to you to have you come and speak at one of their events, how would they go about doing that?
About getting me to an event, it's really easy. You can go to chriswells.org and just click the links up there. My phone number will be on there. They can just give me a call. I do most of my booking now just off of my phone or off of email, and we'll work around your schedule. One of the things I tell people is, if I can't come to your event on that day, I will help find you a speaker, because I know a lot of really good guys that are biblically sound and do a really great job, in the field that we do. But I love to speak at churches. I would speak at a church every night if I could. I really would.
And I've noticed here lately, over the last few weeks on Instagram, whenever you're going to these different engagements, you've posted your excitement that you get to share Jesus and ask folks to pray for you. And that's one of my big things with this show is in terms of support is prayer. In what specific ways can people support you through prayer?
You know, specifically to pray for me, number one is that God fills up our calendar, that we get a chance to speak every opportunity that we can. If a Sunday or a Thursday or whenever rolls around and I have the opportunity to share the gospel, that's what I want to do. So my first prayer is that we will always have the opportunity to be able to go places, to be able to share the gospel with people. That's number one. You know, number two is just that I will have integrity and I will do my ministry as Jesus would have me to do it until he calls me not to do it again. And so those would be the two biggest things is that I want to be faithful in doing what he's called me to do. And I want to have opportunity to be able to do what he's called me to do. And that's to share the gospel with people, to exposit the word of God in a way that people can understand that they can have a relationship with Christ. And that's the biggest thing that we face is, we just getting the word out that I'm available. And there are churches that think, well, we can't afford to bring in a speaker or stuff like that. I want to go. I don't care if it's 2 people or 10,000 people. We'll go and we'll share the gospel with people. So that's my main prayer request.
Okay. When it comes to sharing the gospel, there are two areas that I'd like to talk to you about also before we go ahead and wrap the episode up. But the first of those
Yeah.
areas is your podcast. You have a podcast called the Bass Chaplain
Yeah.
Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes.
and tell us a little bit about it. I enjoy listening to it, but I'm sure there's some folks that haven't heard it before that are listening here that may be interested.
Yeah, well, I was just I've always been fascinated by podcasting. There would be times when I didn't have speaking engagements, and I felt like I wanted to share, and I wanted to be able to get the testimonies of the guys that are in the fishing world out because they have some magnificent testimonies. As a matter of fact, I think of all the pro sports that I've ever watched in my life, there's probably more Christians in bass fishing than it is any other sport. And I guess it just lends itself for that. And so my goal was simply to let the people in the fishing industry tell their faith stories, to tell their, how they came to faith in Christ, what God is doing in their life throughout the fishing industry, in the hopes of that there will be men and young people that will hear them and they will be inspired by them. Guys, like Hank Parker and Mark Rose, Andy Montgomery, Ott Defo, all the people in the fishing industry, Chase Anderson, the owner of Bassmaster. We try to interview all of those people and just say, hey, tell us how you came to faith in Christ. What is the deal? And we'll ask them fishing questions and we'll get fishing information. But the gist of it, the reason for it is to connect, fishing with faith. That, we want to bring in a fisherman, bring in a guy that's interested in fishing. He might want to come in and learn a certain technique or whatever, or maybe he's just a fan of that particular pro. But in addition, he's going to get the driving force of that pro's life, and that will be their relationship with Christ.
Okay. Yeah, and it just carries along with the slogan that you have that the folks that are watching this on YouTube can see there behind you, but the listeners, just for them, the slogan that you have is where faith and fishing hook up, which is pretty cool. And the second thing that I wanted to ask you about that I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about is the devotional that is out
Yeah,
now
yeah,
that you had a hand in writing.
got it
And
right here. Well, got it right
I
here.
don't have my copy. I meant to bring my copy. There you go. That's it. That's the
I got
one.
it.
I
I
actually
got
got
it.
my copy at the Classic
Yeah.
earlier this year, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. We actually bought a copy for my father-in-law, and had it signed by all you guys, all three of you, and we are gonna give it to him for Father's Day. And then you came and spoke at our church, and he got a copy. So we were like, well, a couple shortly thereafter, we gave him the autographed copy. Said, "Here, you take this one, and then the one that you got the other week when Chris was at the church, give that one to somebody else. But
Give it away.
tell us
That's right.
about
Yeah.
the book, and how'd you, whose idea was it, and how did you guys decide to go about having this done?
Well, I started writing my section of the book probably 10 years ago. And so James Niggemeyer and Captain Blake Smith came to me and they said, man, we're thinking we ought to write a devotional book and all of us ought to write, 15 days. And I said, well, here are my 15 days right here. I mean, it was that quick for me. But we wanted to do a devotional book that had a bass fishing flavor to it, where we could bring the experiences of of two touring pros, and then my experience from being the chaplain, to be able to write a devotion where guys would see the need to. Sorry, my phone's going off. Where guys would see the need to spend time with God, because as you know, anytime I talk with somebody, my big thing in life is there's nothing more important that you can do as a Christian than spending time with God. And people know that they should do that. They know they're supposed to, but they just don't do it. Well, the Morning Bite book is 45 days. And we wrote 45 days just because it takes 40 days to build a habit of getting into the presence of God. And it has if you look at the book, it has a section where it's got a scripture verse, and then it's got a devotional thought right there that goes along with that scripture verse. And the what we designed it to do is just to help guys who normally don't do their devotional to be interested enough to say, you know what, this is something I can do in my life. And we wrote it short. It's a short little book, a short little devotional, because we know men have the attention span of a gnat, and they don't like to read, a lot of big things. And so that's kind of how it came about. And it was a labor of love, and we've just enjoyed getting to be able to share it with everybody, throughout the fishing world.
Okay. Now, if somebody wanted a copy, how could they go about getting a copy for themselves or for presents, since Christmas is coming up? Where can they find copies of the devotional?
Hopefully, the devotional is going to be up in the next couple of days on the chriswells.org page, or you can just give me a call or shoot me an email, and we'll get you a copy of that book. And if you've got a church that wants to order a lot of copies of them, like the other day I had a church and they said, hey, we want 100 copies. And so I just, basically just shipped them over to them, took them over to them. And, I'll drive them, if it's 50 or more, I'll drive them anywhere in South Carolina. And so, you can get them for Christmas, but they can check, keep checking the website. And if they're not up on the website by this week, just give me a call or shoot me an email, and I'll be happy to give you, as many copies as you'd like. So.
Now, as far as supporting your ministry, we talked about prayer already, how folks can pray for you, but financially, we've also you've discussed the boat raffle. How can somebody who wants to buy a ticket for the boat raffle, how can they do that? And then what are some other ways that they could support Wellspoken Ministries financially?
Well, I appreciate that. On our website, we have a donation button, and all the donations that are given to us are tax deductible. The boat giveaway is a different entity because it's a duly registered raffle, so we can't give a tax break on that. But if you want to buy a boat ticket, you go to the chriswells.org, click Win the Nitro, and it'll come up. The tickets are $100 a ticket, and we're going to do the drawing at 5 o'clock on December the 16th at Bass Pro Shop in Greenville, South Carolina. And you can buy a ticket up until 4 p.m. that day, the day of. And we sell the vast majority of tickets on the very day that we give the boat away. And I think last year there was upwards of 400 or 500 tickets sold on that day. So.
Last year, you actually had the raffle live at it's Bass Pro now, but at the Cabela's in Greenville. Are you going to be doing that again this year?
And when I say yes, is the Cabela's in Greenville actually became Bass Pro Shop. They changed the name from Cabela's to Bass Pro Shop.
Right.
And most people don't know that yet, but it's Bass Pro Shop Greenville now. But that's where we'll be, and we'll be in the parking lot out there. Andy Montgomery, Major League Fishing Pro, Andy Montgomery is usually there. All my board members will be there, and we're governed by a board of directors that go through everything that we do. And when we do the raffle, we find a random kid in the Bass Pro Shop that day, and they do the drawing. We have like 5 cameras on his hand or her hand, whoever's drawing the ticket out, and it's Facebook Live on the Bass Chaplain Facebook channel. And then we'll put it up on YouTube. We'll put all the angles, all the deal up on YouTube. And so we're a duly registered raffle with the state of South Carolina. And every year we file a raffle report with the Secretary of State. And so it accounts for every ticket, every dollar that goes into that raffle is accounted for by the state of South Carolina. So, but it's been a really great deal. And if you'd like to come out and see us that day, we'll be hanging out the whole time, eating chicken wings, and Andy Montgomery will be talking about fishing. And a lot of people come up and visit with Andy. And in addition, we're giving away 10 loose rod and reels. Well, actually 10 loose reels. We gave away rods one year, but we found it is hard to ship a rod through the mail. And so we just give away reels now. So.
Okay. And that is December 16th. Is that correct?
16th. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. So
December 16th, we'll be there.
Tailgate party, boat giveaway.
Yep.
Got 10 reels given away at the Bass Pro in Greenville parking lot. Hopefully we can make it up there with the kids and hang out for a little bit. Do you keep toilet paper in your vehicle for any on-the-whim adventures?
Do I keep toilet paper in my vehicle? Yes, I do.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Yes, I do.
What is your preferred type of camping?
My preferred type of camping would be in a camper. In a camper.
In a camper, yeah. Okay. Crappie or crappie?
Okay. I grew up saying crappie, but as you become a speaker and you go out of South Carolina, everybody else says crappie. So it depends on where I am.
Okay. Mountains or beach?
Man, every question is going to be it depends, because if I'm at the beach on the bay, it's beach. But if I'm on the laying out on the beach, it's mountains. So
now, of the following options, which would you say is a staple in your cooler when you go on an adventure or on a day on the lake fishing? Beef jerky, trail mix, or stand-up weenies, which is buying. Are
you going to name all of them, or do I have to do it?
That term.
Beef jerky would be in my cooler.
Okay, so beef jerky.
Yeah, I'd be beef jerky.
What is your
lower carbs?
What is your favorite Bible story?
The woman caught in adultery in John chapter 8.
Okay. What is an outdoor-related slang term that you don't think a lot of people might know?
Golly, that's a good question, and I'm drawing a total blank on that one. A slang term that someone may not. Okay, take me to the hill. Take me to the hill. That's what I would say. Okay. Do you know what that means? In South Carolina, if I'm in a boat and I say, take me to the hill, Bo, that means I need to go to the land. But people outside of South Carolina, a certain part of South Carolina, like Santee Cooper, if you're out of that, they always say, "What hill are you talking about?" And and take me to the hill is slang for get me to the land. Get me to the land. Take me to the hill. So that would be it. I told that to James Niggemeyer, and he had no idea what I was talking about.
Okay,
no clue. Take me to the hill, Bo. That's what.
What is the most unique thing on your outdoor bucket list?
The most unique thing on my outdoor bucket list. It would have to be My outdoor bucket list. It would have to be a suppressor for my AR. That's the next thing on my bucket list. So,
What would be your
okay.
choice? A canoe, kayak, paddle boat, or a stand up paddleboard?
I'm going to go kayak. I'm a yacker.
Okay,
I was a kayaker before it was cool to be a
I
kayaker.
got you. Bigfoot or Sasquatch?
Bigfoot. That's him.
Okay.
Yeah.
I already knew.
And by the
I
way,
think I already knew
I'm
your
South
answer from one of
Carolina's
your
leading
previous
authority
ones.
on Bigfoot. Yeah. Sasquatch,
Okay.
Bigfoot. I'm in with
Well,
both of them. So, yeah.
all right. So I think that I've already got the answer to this follow up question, but does Bigfoot exist?
Unequivocally. No doubt. No doubt. I'm a believer.
Now, have you been to the Bigfoot festivals that are in the areas or here in the area? I think there's one in North Carolina in the spring that we're going to take the kids to. Have you ever been to that one?
I'm more serious about I'm more serious about my Bigfoot, so I don't attend festivals unless David Politis is there lecturing. But I'm pretty serious about my Bigfooting, and so I don't, I like to talk
I
about
got you.
serious. I like to get with serious minds about the Squatch. So,
What hobby do you enjoy most that is unrelated to the outdoors?
okay, not related. No, wow, not related to the outdoors. I was going to say metal detecting, but that's definitely related to the outdoors. Is what I like to do. Goodness, not related to the outdoors. What is my favorite hobby? Goodness, I'm trying to think of what I do that's not outdoor related. There's not much that I do. Probably reading, just reading.
Ah, well, what book are you currently reading?
Okay, actually, I'm reading three books currently. One is by a guy named Jeremy Kingsley called Be Last, and it is an awesome, awesome book. And another one is called Mind Monsters, and a third one is Killing Santini by Pat Conroy. So I'm in process of all three of those books right now in some stage in them.
Well, I appreciate you playing along. Again, Chris, thank you for being on and letting me talk with you and interview you. And it's been very informative for me, and I'm sure for the audience as well.
All right, brother. Thank you for having me.